I need you to babysit for me.
You need to do what?
He's down!
Come on, Phoebe. I don't know how to take care of children.
All he has to do is just keep the kid alive for a couple of hours. It's really not that hard.
Hey everybody, it's the Cannon Cruisers. I'm JD.
And I'm Randy, and on this week's bonus feature, we checked out the 1980... Wait a second. This isn't a 1980s film. The 2022 horror throwback Here for Blood.
That's right, Randy. We decided to mix it up a bit this week and actually cover a new movie. Something we don't ever actually do on here.
We haven't done this since we watched Mad God, a movie that to this day is still on my mind.
Also, that one was kind of cheating because that's technically something that was being in production a long time ago. This is completely...
Oh, you mean like another movie that we've been thinking about, The Primeval?
Something like that. Now, this one is just a new movie deliberately done in the style of old movies, specifically 1980s style horror movies.
Would you consider this movie a splatter film?
There is splatter in it, yeah, but I don't think I would consider it a splatter movie. Those are very specific.
I ask because I'm not quite sure exactly what constitutes a splatter film.
Those usually mean like really wanton havoc type movies. And though there are some gory kills in the movie, I'm not sure I would necessarily call it that.
Okay.
Just think of it like a Friday the 13th style kill, only more over the top.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
That's more of the sort of killing you get in this. So, Randy, what is the general plot of Here for Blood from 2022?
Darn it, he beat me to it. Okay, the general plot of it is a wrestler replaces his girlfriend for the night to babysit at a rich couple's house. And while he's there babysitting the daughter, they are attacked by a mask-wearing cult of sex perverts.
Or so we think, I guess.
Or so he thinks. And he must fight them off. Until things turn out to have a little bit more of a supernatural twist to it.
Or does it? I mean, it kind of spins out of control after that point. But
it spun out of control when, surprise, zombie. I was not happy about that, JD.
Well, that's the general gist of what the movie is. It's even what it's sold as. But one of the things about the movie that people tend to talk about when they bring it up is how it's deliberately set up like old horror movie used to be, where it's a simple premise, simple idea, and then you got to deal with the horror that unfolds from that situation.
And also, it's incredibly low budget. Most of the...
it's practical effects.
Yeah, practical effects, and most of it takes place in the same rooms.
It's the same
room. Like, there are a lot of fights that go on in that kitchen.
Yeah.
That kitchen is doing much of the heavy lifting.
Especially for the same poor guy who gets burned multiple times. But yeah, it's more of a, I would say, lean closer to a sort of horror comedy, sort of like Evil Dead 2 at times. There's a lot of zaniness at times.
Yeah, I wouldn't compare it so much towards that, but something a little bit more...
Not the same sort of tone.
Something a little bit more low budget, like let's go into the 90s, like a Ginger Dead Man or maybe an Evil Bong type of thing.
I wouldn't go that low budget. The budget in this one kind of doesn't show as much as in those movies, probably because practical effects at this point in time are not really used a whole lot.
So you're saying Ginger Dead Man versus the Evil Bong more quality of a film than either of the separate genres?
Well, that's like saying, let's say American Werewolf in Paris clearly is a better movie than American Werewolf in London. It has CG in it and therefore is newer. Therefore, it has better effects.
You just can't see my face, but I am incredibly disgusted by him bringing up American Werewolf in Paris.
Well, that's the point, is that back then, the newer stuff was used to change the sort of way these movies were made. And this movie deliberately goes back to what it was like beforehand, where they had to rely on practical effects to do the heavy lifting. So you're not going to see CG in really dumb places for no reason at all, where you just be taken out of it because you're like, why is there a computer effect for such a simple thing? No, in this one, when someone bleeds, they'll bleed.
And bleed, and bleed,
they'll bleed,
and bleed, and bleed.
And
some
because
more.
it's practical effects, it doesn't take you out of it. We're like, why is there just CG blood spurring all over the place?
And bleed. So this movie has a lot of blood. That's why I was like, is this what considered a splatter film with the amount of blood and the amount of corn syrup that's going off in there?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that.
Mixed in with red dye.
I'd say some of the kills definitely get in that territory, but it's not like it's a madcap slaughter fest where people get blown up every 2 seconds or anything like that.
No, just get their heads torn off.
Well, in that aspect, you might as well call Scanners that kind of a movie, and it's not. So I don't know what else to say about that. So yeah, generally, this movie is considered more of a throwback, though for some reason, some of the advertisements they're saying it's like a 90s horror film, but I don't really
It's something
see
that has, it's one of those straight-to-video horror films that would have had a Bruce Campbell in it. Like, it's like My Name is Bruce, but a little bit more bloodier. It's The Man with Two Brains, but a little bit more bloodier.
I would say closer to early 90s than later 90s,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. It's a leprechaun in the hood, if you will.
Though, again, not as tongue-in-cheek as something like that. A lot of those sorts of movies at the time were very wink, wink, nod, nod. Not so much this movie. It kind of takes the premise a little bit more seriously than that. Even if it does get outlandish, it doesn't really lampoon itself over it. It just gets crazy.
Yeah, it's not it's not trying to spoon the spoon. Oh, okay, I guess
Spoon feed?
spork parody the genre that it's
No, it's just...
it's in. It's just playing with the tools in its warehouse,
Yeah.
if you will.
The only difference is, I guess, they just filmed it like today. That's pretty much the difference.
Yeah.
That's the biggest difference, is it's just filmed today. They even had an excuse to basically take cell phones out of the plot. Which was
I love that. I loved how the cell phones work. Like, literally, it's like, I left my cell phone downstairs. Do you have your cell phone? Oh, it's in the car where Dave just got killed.
Because if you think about it...
Where's your cell phone? I left it at home.
Because if you think
Do you have a landline? No, we all have cell phones.
Because if you think about it, when it comes to cell phones nowadays, they're so ubiquitous, you don't really think about them that much. So when they leave them in a certain place and somebody just takes it, like, yeah, that would happen. That makes sense. It's nothing any crazy or anything like that. It's just, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
The only thing that shattered my disbelief was that he left his phone unlocked.
Well, I don't think he really would have cared that much. He doesn't seem like the type of guy who really cares that much. I think even his wallpaper is just the default wallpaper. It's not even anything. There's nothing there. So it's just like it's a lot of setup for a very simple premise that ends up spinning out of control as the movie goes along.
Into having a supernatural cult calling back the old gods known as the Eternal Ones from outside our universe.
Yeah. That's the general gist of it, is that I like how the movie was advertised, first of all. I might as well say that, is that it didn't give any of that away. It just, the movie only basically...
Was the thing I gave you at the beginning about sex perverts.
It basically teases you with, yeah, it's a home invasion thing where they go after the babysitter, but it turns out the babysitter knows how to beat people up. And that's pretty much what it's sold as. It doesn't tell you anything else other than that.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, because when it takes the turn, you're just like, wow, okay, I can see that.
And as of this week, like, I'm just adding this here because I don't know where I could really add it. Like, as of Tuesday of this week, this was trapped in streaming hell because it was on a very specific service, not Shudder, one of the other many horror streaming services that are out there. And it was also made by Bloody Disgusting Films. So it's like made by the website Bloody Disgusting.
Yeah.
This week, it finally got a Blu-ray release.
Yes, finally.
2 years after the fact of its release, it got a Blu-ray release.
Yes, finally. So, like, when I first found out about the movie, I was like, this might be a fun thing to cover. We cover these sorts of movies every now and then, but trying to find the time to, go out of your way to get something like this is not easy.
Use a free trial to use the streaming service that may not have been available in Canada. It's like it gets a little bit tricky.
And also you have to deal with streaming services randomly putting things up and taking them down whenever they feel like it, and then putting them back up, and then when you go to get them again, they're gone again, That happens quite a bit when we do this. Believe it or not, it happens more than you'd think.
Yeah, long story short, I had to buy Maximum Overdrive.
Yeah, because that was one of the movies. Every time we're about to cover it, it disappeared from the streaming service we were going to use it on. Every single time. And then whenever you look it up, like, yeah, the Blu-ray is out of print and it costs this much money. Like, oh, for crying out loud.
so I bought it. And you know how that went after listening to our previous episode on that.
Yeah. However, I will say, this time, however, the experience was different. It wasn't a surprise in a bad way.
No.
No, it was
No
actually,
streaming issues, no video issues.
Nope.
It was just a enjoyable experience overall to actually watch it, which is also my general impression of the film. It was just an enjoyable film overall. Nothing that'll blow your mind. Nothing that's going to shake the foundations of cinema. No. But yeah, it was fun.
It's a fun horror movie. It's done in the old style with this old style of effects, and the escalation is, I think, what really draws you into it, because you're just thinking to yourself, what in the world are they going to do next? How are they going to outdo the last thing they did? And it happens every single time, somehow, all the way up until the very end of the movie, with an ending that's pretty crazy. Actually.
And it ends like those movies with a stinger that will open up the possibility of a sequel.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how it would work in that specific sense, but I know what they're going for with it, yeah.
Yeah, we get the reference, even though they're not doing it to be a reference.
It's mostly just, it's because that's what those types of movies used to do, more or less. So, general impressions out of the way, we want to start with, Randy. Positives, negatives, what?
We've been on a roll with the lowlights in the last couple of episodes, so let's lead off with the highlights.
Okay. What do you want to start with then? What was your
I
highlight?
enjoyed this practical effects. I enjoyed the story. Direction was okay.
Yeah. I really liked the movie just generally as a horror film. It did everything you want in a horror movie without a lot of the dumb modern things you expect out of them. Like, there wasn't really much in the way of jump scares, for instance. It was just something crazy happening.
Yeah, and surprise, zombie.
Oh, the zombie thing was one of the things, like, one of the turns where you didn't see it coming, and it's like, wait, they can bring the dead back to life? Because they did it multiple times, too. They brought back one of their own guys, and they brought back one of the people they killed.
Yeah, but the guys that they brought back that were their own guys were actually just possessed by the Eternal Ones. So they were technically not zombies.
Well, I don't really know what he was when he was possessed, because all we know, they were probably just, like those evil clones that just seem to know things about the person.
Oh, a doppelganger.
Something like that. It might have been one of those sorts. It's because it's never really explained, which is one of the things I liked about it. They don't really go into heavy detail of why they can do this stuff. It's just, yeah, it's a pretty creepy cult. You don't want to have anything to do with it. It's dangerous. And a lot of nonsense ends up happening. One of the things I also like, though, is the dynamic of the main characters. They all have specific relationships with each other, and they play off each other.
Yeah, the relationship between the babysitter Tom and the kid he's babysitting, Grace, is actually pretty cute.
Yeah. Even though that's the very first time they met that night, they hit it off pretty well, which is surprising. And she also already has a relationship with his girlfriend, because she's the one who's supposed to watch her. Yeah,
that's her usual babysitter, and their relationship is different than his relationship with her.
Mm-hmm. Also, the same thing with her friends, have different relationships with both him and her.
And also, can I just say, because it's a great running gag and it has to be brought into here, fuck Gil.
Yes, the stepfather is... well, I guess you might as well just get into that one. What the whole point of the movie is that this cult is deliberately trying to get the blood of women. So usually it's the babysitter plus the person she's taking care of.
Actually, technically, they only wanted the babysitter as the sacrifice, but they wanted the girl too, because spoiler of spoilers, the stepfather and the mother were part of the cult, and they were trying to ascend with the daughter.
So and on the top of that, the stepfather is the one who convinced the mother to kill the original father.
Yeah.
Because she wanted eternal life, because this is what the cult was promising. And like most of these sorts of cults, you don't really know what exactly they were telling the truth about, especially considering how the movie ends, how much they were telling the truth. Which is a nice touch, especially as the movie escalates and it gets more demented. The step-parents also get really, really demented.
And can I just say that it's an incredibly Canadian film?
Yeah, it definitely feels like it. Though
no, every actor in it is Canadian. I think pretty positive it was shot in Ontario.
Though not just that, it's just like the general vibe, which in turn probably helps because There's a lot of 80s style.
They're also all incredibly polite in a weird way.
In a weird way, yes. Like, because they don't actually tell you any sort of location of the movie. It's just a place, which is all you really need in a movie like this. They're out in the middle of nowhere because that's where they're being the babysitter goes. So obviously there's no civilization around, and that's really all you need. That's all you really need for a movie like this. So yeah, those are my highlights of the movie. But how about lowlights? What would you say is the weak point?
It's not as funny as I was led to believe. It's funny, like as in unusual, not ha-ha funny. It's very light on the comedy, even though they try and sometimes fail with it. Some of the use of the practical effects is a little repetitive. Too many shots of head being ripped off and then blood spurting out over and over again. Too much of the same thing over and over.
While the effect is really well done, I do think it's done.
They went to it too many times.
It's like once you see someone's head get ripped off, it's not as surprising the second or third time. So you kind of want something different to happen.
Yeah, and there's like I said, there is a lot of heads being torn off in this film. Although, I think the most original head trauma thing was him elbow dropping over and over again the zombie.
That was probably the funniest one in the movie.
Yeah, that one got a chuckle out of me because it just kept going. That's also another thing is that when they find something they think is funny, they just keep on repeating it over and over again.
Yeah, though not in a way where it's like it shows up multiple times. The only one that shows up multiple times in the movie is actually the better one, which is...
Fuck Gil?
Not that one. It's the guy who repeatedly gets burned.
Oh yeah, that's a funny running gag.
The one cult member who probably suffers the most of any cult member in the movie, to be quite honest, because
without dying,
multiple times he's either
maimed,
burned, loses fingers, or is knocked out over and over again, different ways, and almost every single time he shows up.
And he was eating his scabs also afterwards.
Yeah. Very Texas Chainsaw Massacre too on that part. But yeah, and I wonder how much of like the sort of thing you're talking about is also because of lower budget. So there's only so many things you can do. Like you mentioned at one point, a possible chainsaw fight, and like that might have been a little too much.
Hey, if Sam Raimi could have afforded it for Evil Dead 1...
Yeah, but Evil Dead 1 is not...
Has no budget, man.
It's also not Evil Dead 2, and it's not Army of Darkness.
Oh, no, Army of Darkness had a budget.
That's what I mean.
I know, because I've watched all the Evil Dead movies in the last, year.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I mean all of them.
It's a very different style of budget than what you can do nowadays. Nowadays, it's very different how much a budget can take you. And I think they did well enough with what they had. I just, like I said, thought some of it probably could have been a bit less repetitive, particularly near the end. But aside from that...
he gets an axe and then he barely uses it.
Well, he doesn't really have a chance to use it because the guy he's fighting...
Because it all just falls back down to basic wrestling at that point.
Yeah, well, the last guy he fights pretty much is a wrestler, so it would make sense in that case. Yeah, aside from that, I would think...
No music soundtrack wasn't that memorable.
The only thing I really say is I wasn't the biggest fan of the actual end of the movie with the stinger. Not particularly because I don't think it can work. It didn't really feel like
earned.
I'm not even sure if earned's the right word in this. It's more like the mother didn't get any comeuppance. She really deserved more comeuppance than she got.
Oh no, they have to drive to a police station, JD. But at first they have to drop the girlfriend off at her exam because that was the gag. It's like, I still have to attend my exam.
Yeah, but it's more like she didn't really get the comeuppance she deserved.
She got punched in the face.
That's about it. But compared to what happened to Gil, I mean, he was a scumbag too, but she also, she agreed to kill her husband for him. So you kind of want more to happen to her. And who knows, maybe if there is a sequel, they'll do more with that. I don't know. But as it is, it was all right. I just wish they would have had a little bit more at the end in regards to that sort of comeuppance. Because everybody else in the movie got their comeuppance and then some. No joke. It's a pretty gruesome comeuppance. Especially the guy who got hit by the car. He did not look like he had a very pleasant death.
You said you'd be 10 minutes!
Well... There you go.
Okay, so before we go into our scoring, something I forgot to do at the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
Let's call out the casting and the directing and the writing. So it was written by James Roberts and directed by Daniel Torres. They do these type of little horror movies like this all the time. And it starred such people as Sean Roberts, Maya Mizaljevic, Joel Farrow, Tara Spencer-Nairn, Michael Theriot, Kelly Penner, Samantha Helt, Marcus Bobishk, Jesse Buck, Jimmy Lim, Marc-Andre Boulanger, Channing Decker. I'm just reading them all because the cast isn't that big.
No, it's not.
Glenn Michael Grant, Dee Snider, Holly Jade Balmer, Stephen Love, and John Tench.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of people in the movie, so they work with what they got. And I will say, all of the people that mentioned
are all Canadian actors.
Also, they all did a pretty good job. The direction's well done, the writing's well done, the acting's well done. Nothing really stands out in a way that takes you out of the movie you're watching, which is really good for something like this. Especially since you have such limited locations and limited actors, and I assume limited time to film on top of it. So, yeah. Pretty well done all the way around. So, with all that said, and all that out of the way, Randy, what would you score Here for Blood from 2022?
Why don't I guess what you're going to score it first?
Here we go.
You're going to give it a 4 out of 5, because you really enjoyed the film.
And you're going to give it...
A 3.
I knew it. Randy's just as predictable as I am. You know what? We're not even going to describe why we're giving it those scores. If you've been watching this many episodes by now, you can probably guess the exact reasons we gave them those scores just by re-listening to the episode.
Honestly, I give it a 3, and I will elaborate here just because it wasn't anything special. Was it enjoyable? Yes. It's... I've watched a lot. At this point, I have watched a lot of horror, and that's 70s horror, 80s horror, 90s horror, modern horror. I've watched a lot of it, and it's not really that horrifying of a movie. It's not really that funny.
Good on you for skipping the 2000s.
No, I said modern horror when I got to 2000s.
2000s is 20 years ago, Randy. It's not modern.
Okay, sorry. 2000 horror. I still know what you did last summer, JD.
No, my point with that is
2010s and the 2020s.
Horror is not that good.
I've watched a lot of frickin' horror in the last 7 years since we started this podcast. Yeah. And like I said, it's not that terrifying. It's not that original. It's not that great, but it's not that bad. It's like, you know what it is? It's totally serviceable, enjoyable schlock that you would find on a streaming service.
Okay. That's a good way of ending it, actually. If that sounds like your cup of tea, give it a watch.
Why would you give it a 4, JD? I elaborated, I ranted on it. You might as well.
I don't want to elaborate. I think I'm good with what I said already. I think, like I said, all of Randy's things said about the movie are true. The difference between the two of us is I liked it more. That's pretty much it. There's nothing else to go into other than that. And I will just say that if you like this type of movie, if anything we just described about it, if you've seen any of these sorts of movies before, you should watch it. I don't see any reason why not to. And that's really all we got to say about this one. Not a whole lot to really elaborate on. It is what it says on the tin, aside from the fact that it kind of goes into crazy places. Aside from that, it is what it says. They were here for blood, and you got blood.
Yeah, you literally got what it said on the tin. You were here for blood, you got the blood, all the blood you wanted, and more.
Yep, and that's where we'll leave it. All right, everybody, we'll see you next time when we continue our cruise through our Who Knows catalog. Goodbye.
So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, adieu.
That's not this type of movie.
Goodbye.
I'm not gonna kill him, I'm just gonna bash him. How do you want to do this? You want a fist fight? Okay, all right.
This babysitter is really pissing me off.